What would you do if the ugliest ship in a junkyard suddenly called you its heir? What would you do if every alien in the room laughed at your bid, but the dead starship was not dead at all? Before this forgotten ship opens its first secret, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who loves stories where humanity rises from the dust. Callum Voss had never been the kind of man people noticed. In the crowded places of the galaxy, that was useful. He could walk through a market full of smugglers, soldiers, pilots, brokers, and thieves, and most of them would forget his face before he reached the next door. He was human, which already made many people look past him. He was not rich. He was not young. He did not wear bright armor or expensive station clothes. His jacket had repairs at both elbows, and his boots had been sealed so many times that the original material barely showed. But Callum knew ships. That was the one thing no one could take from him. He knew the smell of a failing coolant line. He knew how a bad reactor sounded through metal flooring. He knew when a ship was truly dead, and when it was only waiting for someone patient enough to listen. That was why he came to Dureth 9. Dureth 9 was not a beautiful station. It was not even a safe one. It floated between three territories, close enough to matter, but far enough that no empire wanted the trouble of controlling it. Laws existed there, but only in the way old warning signs existed. They were visible. They were ignored. Everyone knew the station survived because it was useful to the powerful and necessary to the desperate. Ships came there when no one wanted to repair them. Cargo came there when no one wanted records. People came there when they needed one more chance. Callum had been coming to that station for 19 years. He had seen war cruisers cut into scrap. He had seen merchant liners sold by the kilogram. He had seen proud captains cry while signing away vessels that had carried their families for generations. There was a sadness to old ships. Callum had always felt it. Maybe that was why he never laughed at them. The auction yard was spread across three huge docking bays. Bay 1 held the clean wrecks. Ships with missing engines, cracked hull plates, burned bridge sections, or failed life support systems. Expensive junk, but still useful. Bay 2 held the stranger things. Survey vessels with unknown modifications. Private security ships with hidden compartments. Smuggling craft that had been stripped by the authorities, then stripped again by thieves, then sold as empty frames. Bay 3 was where hope went when it had nowhere else to go. That was where Callum walked. Around him, alien buyers moved in small groups. Vorith merchants stood in layered coats and spoke with wet, clicking voices. Their scales shimmered under the bay lights, and their assistants carried legal pads and private scanners. Thressy traders checked engines with their long six-fingered hands. A pair of Nemur salvage twins argued beside a broken cargo hauler with both of their mouths at once. No one moved aside for Callum. No one needed to. He slipped through the crowd and went deeper into Bay 3, past ships so damaged that even their names had been removed. His scanner hung from his wrist. He used it without thinking, waving it over hull fragments, exposed conduits, cargo locks, broken weapon mounts, and engine plates. Most of it was junk. Some of it was good junk. None of it was worth what the auction house wanted. Then he saw the bow. At first, he almost missed it. It was buried under two condemned freighters and the bent frame of an old mining platform. Only a curved section of its front hull was visible in the shadow beyond a stack of cargo ribs. The metal looked black. Not painted black. Not burned black. It was black in a way Callum had never seen metal become. The light from the bay touched it and disappeared. It did not shine. It did not reflect. It seemed to drink the glow around it and keep the secret for itself. Callum stopped walking. His scanner beeped softly. He lifted it and ran a basic sweep. The screen blinked once. Then it displayed one word. Unclassified. Callum frowned. That was not possible. His scanner held the standard compact material library, the one every licensed salvager used. It could identify almost any alloy used in civilian or military ships across known space. He ran the scan again. Unclassified. He stepped closer. The hull surface was smooth, but not simple. Under the dust and grime, he could see patterns worked into the material. Fine lines, like geometry pressed into the skin of the ship. They were too careful to be decoration and too beautiful to be random. Callum touched the hull. The metal was warm. He pulled his hand back. In a docking bay full of dead ships, this one was warm. A voice behind him made a bubbling sound. He turned and saw a Vorith merchant watching him with amusement. "That thing has been here for months," the merchant said through his translator. "No registry. No reactor signature. No value beyond scrap mass. Even the cutters do not want it." Callum looked back at the ship. "How long is it?" he asked. The merchant gave a small shrug. 800 meters, maybe more. Too large to move cheaply. Too dead to matter. 800 meters. Callum stared at the dark bow again. Too large to be a freighter of that shape. Too broad in the wrong places. Too heavily built. The exposed armor curve was not commercial. It had the silence of something designed to survive terrible things. The auction tag flashed on a small orange plate fixed to a nearby support beam. Lot 773. Unknown derelict vessel. Estimated scrap value, 40,000 credits. Opening bid, 40,000 credits. No active bids. Callum read the number twice. 40,000 credits was everything he had left. It was more than everything, really. He still owed dock fees on his little salvage tug. He still had 2 loans waiting to bite him. He still had an engineer who had not been paid on time in 6 weeks, and a friend in the academic underground who had once told him that ancient impossible things were worth more than comfort. He should have walked away. Any smart man would have walked away. Callum had survived 19 years in salvage by trusting one simple rule. When a dead ship feels alive, listen. The auctioneer was almost finished with the lot. "Final call," the auctioneer said, barely looking at the strange buried vessel. "Unknown derelict. No reactor response. No claim history. Scrap sale only." Callum raised his bid paddle. A few heads turned. The Vorith merchant laughed again. The auctioneer paused, as if he wanted to make sure the human understood what he was doing. 40,000 credits from salvage operator Voss, he said. "Any higher offers?" No one spoke. The auctioneer waited for 3 seconds. Then the gavel came down. Sold. Just like that, Callum Voss bought a junk starship no one wanted. And somewhere deep inside the dark hull, something old began to wake. That night, the station lights dimmed into their artificial sleep cycle, but Callum did not leave. He stood outside the ship with a portable lamp, a cutting tool, a coil of safety line, and a feeling in his chest he did not trust. It was not fear. It was not excitement either. It was the feeling a person gets before opening a door they cannot close again. The entrance was not easy to find. The ship had no visible hatch in the exposed bow. No normal docking collar. No maintenance port that matched known standards. After 2 hours of searching, Callum found a rupture in the lower hull where something had torn through the armor long ago. Not cut. Torn. That bothered him. Whatever damaged this ship had been strong. Very strong. He clipped his safety line to a support beam and climbed inside. His lamp beam passed over the inner wall. Callum forgot to breathe. The corridor beyond the breach was enormous. Not wide like a cargo tunnel. Not open like a hangar. It was a real corridor, built with purpose, with walls that curved slightly inward and a ceiling high enough for armored people to walk beneath it. Not aliens with strange body shapes. Human-sized people. Tall humans, maybe. Humans wearing suits or battle armor. The thought made him uneasy. Humanity did not build ships like this. Humanity barely held a respected place in compact space. Humans were miners, loaders, pilots, mechanics, security contractors, colony workers, and cheap labor on alien stations. They owned small ships, sometimes. They operated old transports. They served under alien command. They repaired the machines of stronger species. They did not build 800-meter warships. They had never built anything like this. At least, that was what every school, every archive, every compact record, and every alien authority had always said. Callum moved forward. The corridor walls were covered in the same fine patterns he had seen outside. They moved in long sequences, flowing around doors and panels, rising from floor to ceiling in perfect lines. His light passed over them, and for a moment the markings seemed to shift. He stopped. The air was cold, but the walls were still warm. He touched one again. There was a faint vibration beneath his fingers. Not machinery. Not power. A pulse. Callum swallowed. "You are not dead," he whispered. The corridor gave no answer. But far away, deep in the ship, something clicked. Callum froze. His lamp trembled in his hand. A weaker man would have left then. A wiser man might have too. Callum did not leave. He sat down in the corridor with his back against the wall, because standing suddenly felt too small for the moment. For a long time, he listened. Nothing moved. Nothing attacked him. Nothing spoke. But the ship felt aware in a way no machine should. When Callum finally returned to the station side of the breach, the auction yard was silent. The alien buyers had gone to their rented rooms. The cutters had shut down. The lights over Bay 3 flickered with cheap station power. He looked back at the buried dark hull. For the first time in years, he smiled. 2 days later, Myra Sable arrived. She stepped off a shuttle with a tool case in one hand and a face full of immediate regret. "No," she said. Callum stood beside the hull breach. "Good to see you too." "No," she repeated, looking up at the black curve of the buried starship. "Absolutely not. I can feel bad decisions from here." "You said you wanted interesting work." "I said I wanted paid work. This could become paid work. That is what people say before they die inside machinery." Myra Sable was short, sharp-eyed, and always seemed angry at the universe for building systems less efficiently than she would have. She had once repaired a fusion core using a broken medical battery, 3 meters of copper wire, and a language so violent that the automatic station sensor had failed halfway through. She complained about everything. Then she fixed it. That was why Callum trusted her more than anyone alive. She climbed through the breach 5 minutes after declaring that she would not do it. For the first hour, she was sarcastic. For the second hour, she was annoyed. By the third hour, she was quiet. That was when Callum began to worry. He found her on deck 4, standing inside a chamber that might have been an engineering control room. The walls were full of recessed channels and inactive panels. At the center of the chamber sat a structure like no reactor housing Callum had ever seen. It was a sphere inside a ring inside another ring, all suspended without visible support. Sable did not turn when he entered. "What is it?" Callum asked. "If I knew, I would be using much worse language." "That bad?" "That's strange." She moved closer to the sphere. "There is no fusion chamber. No antimatter containment. No plasma feed. No standard energy conversion pathway. I can see conduits leading away from it, but I cannot explain how power is meant to move through them. Could it be alien?" Sable looked at him. "Callum, I have taken apart alien reactors built by species that breathe methane and think in color pulses. This is not just unfamiliar. This is ahead of us in a direction we never walked." Callum thought of the warm walls. "I called Yaina," he said. Sable closed her eyes. "Of course you did. She knows ancient language systems. She was removed from the academic council for saying humans had a forgotten advanced past. Yes. Sable opened her eyes. And now you bought a mystery warship that looks like it was built for humans. Yes. She sighed. I hate that this is exactly her kind of trouble. Dr. Yaina Orus arrived the next day. She looked like she had not slept since receiving Callum's message. That was because she had not. She came with 3 cases of scanners, 2 personal translation pads, a private archive drive, and the intense expression of someone who had spent her whole life waiting for one impossible door to open. Yaina had once been a respected xenoarchaeologist. Then she published a paper arguing that humanity's current space age was not its first. The paper had evidence. Ancient human symbols found in places no human should have reached. Genetic drift patterns that suggested unexplained migrations. Myth structures across distant colonies that shared roots older than recorded settlement. Technology impressions hidden inside ruins that official historians insisted were coincidence. The academic council destroyed her career. The Vorith delegates laughed at her. Human institutions quietly stepped away, afraid to be connected to a theory that embarrassed the powers who controlled funding, licenses, travel rights, and station access. Yaina had lost her title, her position, and most of her friends. She had not lost the truth. When she stepped into the ship, she stopped after 3 meters. Her lamp fell slightly in her hand. Callum saw her face change. Not surprise. Recognition. She walked to the wall and placed both hands on the markings. Her breathing shook. These are not decorations, she said. I thought so, Callum replied. They are script. Sable leaned against the corridor entrance. Can you read it? Yaina did not answer immediately. She opened her scanner, then another device, then her own personal pad. She ran pattern matches, phonetic structures, symbol rotations, root language comparisons, and scripts that had been rejected by every official database she had ever submitted them to. After 10 minutes, she sat down on the floor. Callum crouched beside her. Yaina. She looked up with tears in her eyes. This is human. The corridor went silent. Sable spoke first. That is not possible. Yaina laughed once, without humor. That sentence has followed me my entire career. She turned the pad toward them. Symbols glowed on the screen beside translated fragments. This script is older than any recorded human writing. Much older. But the roots are there. I can see links to languages from Earth, from Mars colony dialects, from the old Pacific migration families, from 17 separate human language branches that should not share this kind of structure unless they came from something earlier. How much earlier? Callum asked. Yaina looked back at the wall. At least 40,000 years. Sable stared at her. Humanity was not building starships 40,000 years ago. No, Yaina said softly. Our recorded humanity was not. The word settled over them. Outside, Durith 9 groaned as old docking clamps shifted. Inside the ship, the warm walls seemed to wait. For 3 days, they worked like people running from a storm. Sable mapped the power routes. She grew more unsettled with every hour. The conduits did not behave like normal conduits. Some carried energy, some carried data, and some carried something that looked like both. The ship was not wired in separate systems the way modern vessels were. It was woven. Yaina copied text from the walls until her eyes reddened and her fingers cramped. Every chamber added more proof. Crew records. Technical markings. Old command phrases. Fragments of history. Some symbols she could translate, some she could only guess at, but all of them pointed toward the same impossible truth. Humans had built this ship. Not modern humans. Not the scattered, dismissed humanity the galaxy thought it knew. Older humans. Greater humans. Humans who had crossed the stars before the empires now calling themselves ancient had even learned to leave their moons. Callum did what salvagers do. He moved through the ship and listened. He learned its shape by walking it. He found sealed doors that would not open. He found empty weapon bays larger than his tug. He found crew quarters with sleeping pods built for human bodies. He found a mess hall with benches still locked in place. He found a medical room where the scanning beds adjusted when he stepped near, then went dark again. The ship had been abandoned, but not carelessly. Everything was in order. Everything was waiting. On the fourth night, Sable called them to engineering. She had connected a salvage power cell to a secondary input point, though she made sure to explain several times that she did not like it, did not approve of it, and wanted a record of her objection if they all became smoke. Callum stood near the door. Yaina held her pad with both hands. Sable looked at the power cell, then at the strange ringed reactor. "If this thing eats physics, I am blaming you," she said. Then she activated the connection. For 1 second, nothing happened. Then the ship exhaled. The sound moved through the hull like a deep breath. It was not loud, but Callum felt it in his chest. Dust fell from ceiling seams. The floor trembled. Far away, panels unlocked. Lines of amber light appeared along the walls, faint at first, then growing steady. The corridor outside came alive. Not bright. Not new. Alive. Yaina stepped into the hall. The ship spoke. The voice came from the walls. Low. Deep. Structured. It carried weight, like stone learning to speak after an age of silence. Yaina almost dropped her pad. Sable muttered something that did not translate politely. Callum stood still. He did not understand the words, but he felt something inside him respond. Not his mind. Something older than thought. A pressure behind the ribs. A strange familiarity. The voice lasted 4 seconds. Then silence returned. Yaina worked faster than Callum had ever seen anyone work. Her fingers flew over the pad. She broke the sounds into roots. Compared tones. Matched rhythm. Rebuilt meaning from fragments. Then she stopped. Her face went pale. "What did it say?" Callum asked. Yaina looked at him. "One word." Sable folded her arms. "And?" Yaina swallowed. "Air." Pause here for a breath, because this is the moment the junk ship stops being junk. If you are still watching, tap the like button, subscribe for more HFY stories, and share this video with the friend who always guesses the twist too early. The first official visitor arrived 2 days later. His name was Veth Carroll, and he was Voreth. He came with polished scales, 2 legal aides, a military escort waiting outside the auction bay, and the calm face of someone who believed the end of the conversation had already been written before it began. Callum met him outside the hull breach. Veth Carroll looked at the ship, then at Callum, as if both offended him. "Under Compact Heritage Preservation Law," he said, "any vessel of unknown historical origin discovered in compact adjacent space may be placed under cultural review. During review, the vessel may be transferred to recognized historical authority." Callum nodded politely. Recognized historical authority meaning the Voreth hegemony. Carroll's eyes narrowed. The hegemony maintains the oldest certified archival structure in this region. That must be convenient. This is not a negotiation, human. Callum smiled, just a little. That is unfortunate. I brought paperwork. Carroll's aides glanced at each other. Callum lifted his data pad. I purchased this vessel legally from Durith 9 Auction Authority. The sale was registered, time-stamped, and notarized. Before your office filed anything, I submitted a salvage claim under Free Salvage Charter. Since the vessel had no active owner, no registry, and no heritage flag at the time of sale, any later claim requires tribunal review. Carroll's jaw tightened. Callum continued. I also filed an ownership dispute notice this morning. That freezes outside claim action until the review period ends. Minimum 90 days, unless the Compact Tribunal accepts an emergency petition. Given that the ship is now classified as a restoration project under my licensed salvage business, seizure gets complicated. Carol stared at him. Sable, listening through comms from inside the ship, whispered, "I have never loved bureaucracy before." Carol stepped closer. "You do not understand what you have found." Callum held his gaze. "I am starting to." The Vorith inspector's voice dropped. "You are a salvage worker standing in front of forces older than your species' entire civilization." Callum did not answer right away. Behind him, beyond the breach, amber light moved along the corridor walls. Then Callum said, "Are you sure about that?" Carol left without another word. But Callum saw the truth in the way he left. The inspector was not finished. He was going to call someone higher. Someone with ships. Someone who would not ask politely. Callum went inside. He found Yaina in a circular chamber near the center of the vessel. She had named it the archive room. The walls were covered from floor to ceiling with writing. Not labels. Not warnings. Entire rivers of text. Lines curved around the chamber in careful order, broken by symbols, diagrams, star maps, and what looked like mathematical structures. Yaina had not slept in 30 hours. Her hair was tied badly behind her head. Her eyes were red. She looked happier than Callum had ever seen her. "How bad is it?" she asked without looking away from the wall. "The kind of bad that brings warships." Yaina nodded, as if she had expected nothing less. "What have you found?" Callum asked. She turned slowly. "Everything." Callum waited. "This is not just a warship," she said. "It is a memory vault. They wrote their history into the walls. Science. Navigation. Military doctrine. Cultural records. Personal names. Bloodline records. Star maps. Technical principles. They put the knowledge of a civilization into the body of its greatest weapon." "Why?" Yaina's mouth trembled. "Because they thought no other place would survive." Callum looked around the chamber. Thousands of lines of ancient human writing surrounded him. A dead civilization had spoken into metal and trusted the future to listen. He felt small. Then Sable's voice came over comms. "Callum." He touched his earpiece. "Go. I brought part of the secondary grid online." "That sounds good." "It would, except something opened on deck 1 that was not on any map I made." Yaina turned toward the door. Sable's voice became very careful. "I think the ship noticed us." They ran. The newly opened section was near the command level. Callum had passed the door before. It had been sealed into the wall so perfectly that he had not recognized it as a door. Now it stood open, revealing a long chamber beyond. The room was not a bridge, at least not like any bridge Callum knew. There were no rows of stations. No pilot chair. No tactical pit. No command rail. The chamber centered around a single seat shaped from the same dark metal as the hull. Around it rose curved display arcs, inactive but waiting. The floor carried lines of old light that slowly brightened as Callum entered. Sable stopped at the threshold. "That," she said, "is either a command chair or a very dramatic execution device." Yaina moved closer, reading symbols along the entrance. "It calls this the first throne." Callum frowned. "Throne? Not monarchy," Yaina said quickly. "The word is closer to command center, bond point, command seat, and heart, all at once. That is too many meanings. Ancient languages do that." The ship spoke again. This time the voice lasted longer. Yaina translated as fast as she could. "It is running a scan." Sable stepped back. "Of what?" Yaina looked at Callum. "Biology." The floor lights moved toward him. Callum wanted to step away. He did not. A soft golden glow passed over his skin. His scanner went dead on his wrist. The air changed pressure. The command chair shifted slightly, as if something inside it had unlocked. The voice spoke again. Yaina listened. Her face changed. What? Callum asked. She whispered, genetic lineage confirmed. The ship continued. Yaina's voice shook as she translated. Commander class heritage detected. Authorization match accepted. Integration protocol available. Sable stared at Callum. That sounds bad. It sounds impossible, Yaina said. Callum looked at the chair. What does it mean? Yaina read the symbols forming across the display arc. It means your blood matches the old command line. Not perfectly. Not directly. But close enough. The ship has been waiting for someone carrying the right markers. Callum laughed once, because fear needed somewhere to go. I am a salvage operator. The ship disagrees. What else does it say? Yaina hesitated. It says you are the closest living genetic match to its last commander. The chamber became very still. Callum turned toward the chair again. It looked less like an object now. More like an invitation. Sable grabbed his arm. Do not sit in the ancient mystery death chair. Callum looked at her. You know I am going to sit in it. Yes, she said. That is why I am asking the universe to make one good decision through you. Callum stepped forward. The chair adjusted before he touched it. Not mechanically. Not with loud movement. It reshaped with quiet precision, as if it remembered the human body and was glad to prove it. The armrests lifted slightly. The back curved. Small nodes appeared where his hands would rest. He sat. The ship woke around him. Not fully. Not violently. It recognized him. The feeling was not like using controls. It was not like linking to a machine. It was warmer, deeper, stranger. The chair touched his nerves through the skin, and the display arcs bloomed with soft gold light. Callum saw star maps, system status, unknown symbols, weapon locks, damaged sections, dead memory banks, living memory banks, and one central presence waiting behind it all. A name entered his mind. Arkin. Callum said it out loud. The ship answered with a low hum. Yaina's eyes widened. That is its self-designation, she said. At least, the closest our mouths can say. Sable crossed her arms tightly. So now the ship has a name. Callum closed his eyes. Images touched the edge of his thoughts. Not full memories. Not yet. Fragments. Stars burning in unfamiliar patterns. Fleets arranged across darkness. Humans in armor standing beneath huge banners. A sky split by light. Voices speaking in ancient command rooms. A fear so large it had no simple name. Callum opened his eyes. What was this ship built to fight? Arkin answered through the throne. Yaina listened to the translated audio and went pale. What? Sable asked. Yaina looked between them. The translation is rough, she said. But the closest meaning is the unraveling. Over the next week, the ship taught them what that meant. Arkin did not speak like a normal artificial intelligence. Modern ship minds were either limited assistance or illegal military systems locked behind layers of control. Arkin was something else. It was patient. It was old. It did not behave like a servant. It behaved like a survivor. It gave Callum information in pieces, because too much at once hurt him. At night, while Sable worked on power relays and Yaina translated the archive, Callum sat in the first throne and learned. The ancient humans had not been a small civilization. They had spread across stars before the compact existed. Before the Vorith hegemony called itself old. Before the current trade lanes had names. They had built cities in orbit around blue giants. They had grown gardens inside hollow moons. They had made ships that moved through folded gravity. They had studied time, matter, energy, and memory with a confidence that made modern science look like children guessing at shadows. And then they found the unraveling. It was not an empire. It was not a species in any normal sense. It moved through advanced civilizations and learned them. It watched their tools. It studied their weapons. It copied their tactics. It absorbed what made them strong, then used that strength to erase them. If a civilization built better shields, the unraveling learned those shields. If it created stronger weapons, the unraveling copied them. If it used clever strategy, the unraveling adapted. Every victory became the next defeat. The ancient humans fought anyway. For years. Maybe centuries. Arkan's records were damaged in places, and some of the time scales did not translate cleanly. They built fleets. They built dreadnoughts. They built weapons that could bend gravity around enemy formations and tear open space in controlled lines. They won battles. They lost worlds. Then they understood the terrible truth. The unraveling could learn technology. It could learn patterns. It could learn fear. But there was one thing it could not understand. Sacrifice. Not the simple kind. Not dying in battle. The deeper kind. The decision to give up power, memory, glory, comfort, and survival for people who would never know your name. The ancient humans made a choice so painful that Callum could barely hold it in his mind. They erased themselves from the galaxy. They scattered their descendants across many worlds. They stripped away technology. They broke their own records. They buried their ships. They turned their heirs into primitive, harmless, forgotten people. The unraveling moved on. There was no advanced human civilization left to study. No great human empire to absorb. No human fleet to copy. Humanity became small enough to survive. The ship stayed hidden. Waiting. Not for a date. Not for a signal. For blood. For the descendants to rise again. For someone carrying the old markers to reach the stars once more. For someone to find the ships, wake them, and remember. Callum sat in a throne with tears he refused to wipe away. All this time, he whispered. Arkan hummed softly. How many ships? The star map opened. 11 points of light appeared. Scattered across the galaxy. 11 ancient human dreadnoughts. The first throne was only one of them. Callum looked at the glowing points for a long time. Then he said, "We are going to need help." Before the galaxy realizes what Callum has found, take 1 second for the channel. Like this video if the mystery has pulled you in, subscribe for the next deep space story, and share it so another viewer can join the crew before the fleet wakes. Help came faster than he expected. Not official help. Official help was busy being afraid. The Compact Tribunal accepted the heritage filings, but delayed every decision. The Dureth 9 authority confirmed Callum's purchase, then stopped answering messages. Human representatives sent careful words of support that sounded like they had been written by lawyers hiding under desks. But the quiet people came. A human dock medic from Dureth 9 brought supplies and refused payment. 2 human mechanics from Bay 2 asked Sable where to start. A Thressi data clerk, who said she had always hated Vorith arrogance, delivered a copy of sealed station traffic logs showing that the hegemony had requested military movement clearance near Dureth 9. A human pilot named Run brought a cargo shuttle full of spare cells, then stayed because he said his shuttle was old and ugly enough to belong near Callum's ship. Yaina sent fragments of proof to scholars she still trusted. Some ignored her. Some answered within minutes. Some arrived in person with scanners, fear, and the expressions of people who had spent years pretending not to believe forbidden things. By the 10th day, the junk ship no one wanted had become the center of a secret human work camp. Sable hated managing people, which meant she was very good at it. She shouted. She assigned. She corrected bad wiring before it killed anyone. She slept in 2-hour pieces and drank coffee that tasted like metal regret. Yaina built a translation team in the archive chamber. Every wall became a map of meaning. She identified names of ancient human command ranks, scientific terms, family structures, star systems, laws, and warnings. The more she translated, the more dangerous the discovery became. Because it did not only prove that humans had once been powerful. It proved that the Vorath hegemony had lied. For 600 years, the Vorath had claimed regional authority because their civilization was supposedly the oldest spacefaring power in the sector. That claim gave them legal weight in compact disputes. It let them classify younger species as developing. It let them decide which species needed guidance, limits, protection, and control. Humans had lived under that label for generations. Developing. Promising, but unstable. Useful, but not ready. Hardworking, but politically immature. Callum had heard those words all his life. He had heard them from employers, port inspectors, alien captains, customs officers, and even humans who had learned to repeat them because repeating them made life easier. Now the archive walls said something else. Humanity was older. Far older. Older than the Vorath. Older than the Compact. Older than every law used to keep them small. That was why the hegemony would come. Not for the ship alone. For the truth. On the 16th day, they came early. Callum was in the archive chamber when the alarm sounded. It was not a sharp siren. Arkin did not scream like modern systems. The ship gave a low warning tone that passed through the walls and into the bones of everyone aboard. Callum touched his comm. Sable. I see them, she said. Her voice was calm in the way people sound when panic has been placed carefully in a box. How many? 4 ships. 3 cruisers and 1 Sovereign-class Dreadnought. Yaina lowered her pad. Callum understood the name. Everyone did. The Sovereign class was the pride of the Vorath fleet. A modern heavy warship. A ship built to end arguments by arriving. Sable continued. Weapons are charged. They are holding 2,000 kilometers out. Callum left the archive and went to the command level. The first throne responded as soon as he entered. The chair opened its systems. The display arcs came alive. Arkin showed the approaching formation with clean precision. 4 red shapes in the dark. The broadcast arrived 10 seconds later. The voice was cold and official. Unknown vessel under illegal private control. By authority of the Vorath Hegemony and Emergency Cultural Protection Order, you are instructed to evacuate immediately. You have 2 hours. Failure to comply will result in forced boarding. Sable appeared on the display from engineering. They gave us 2 hours. How long do you need? To make the ship fly well. A month. To avoid dying instantly. 4 hours. Callum looked at the enemy formation. Yaina entered the command chamber behind him. They will not stop at boarding, she said. Once they control the ship, the archive disappears. Callum nodded. He opened a channel. Vorath Fleet Command, he said, keeping his voice steady. This is Callum Voss, licensed salvage operator. I acknowledge your order and am beginning evacuation procedures. Sable's eyes widened on the display. He cut the channel. Then he looked at her. You have 90 minutes. Sable stared at him. That is not 4 hours. It is what we have. Callum, I can bring forward batteries to full power, maybe. Rear systems will be partial. The main defense field is still theoretical. What does theoretical mean? It means I know which button wakes it. I do not know what it does. Callum sat in the first throne. Arkin's interface rose around his hands. The ship felt calmer than he did. Sable, he said, find me the weapons lock. Already there. It is sealed behind a command bond. Arkin showed Callum a symbol. He placed his palm against it. Deep inside the ship, something opened. Sable went silent. Then she whispered, "Oh." Callum waited. What is O? I found the forward battery. That sounds useful. No, she said. You are not understanding me. I found the forward battery, and the Vorith Dreadnought just became less impressive. For 90 minutes, the ship prepared. Human volunteers ran through corridors carrying tools, data slates, power couplers, and fear. Sable guided them like a storm with a voice. Yaina secured archive copies and sent encrypted transmissions to every trusted academic, legal body, and observer contact she had. Callum stayed in the throne. Arkin taught him weapons control with terrifying patience. The ancient ship did not use triggers and screens. It used intention, confirmation, restraint, and bond. The commander did not simply aim. The commander understood the field of battle with the ship, then decided what kind of violence was necessary. That frightened Callum more than the enemy fleet. Because Arkin was not eager. It was ready. There is a difference. At 88 minutes, Sable reported. Forward batteries are alive. Rear batteries at 60%. Gravity shear field available. What is a gravity shear field? I still do not know, but it uses more power than the entire Vorith Dreadnought outside. At 91 minutes, the Vorith broadcast returned. Evacuation period has ended. Prepare for forced boarding. Callum settled into the throne. He could feel Arkin around him. Not controlling him. Standing with him. He opened the outer hull systems. The first throne lit up. All at once, the dark hull became a map of gold-white light. Lines burned across its surface in perfect geometric patterns. The buried shadow from Bay 3 was gone. In its place floated an ancient human dreadnought, wounded but awake, vast and beautiful in the cold black outside Durith 9. For the first time in 40,000 years, the galaxy saw what humanity had built. The lead Vorith cruiser fired. A plasma lance crossed the distance in silence. It should have punched through damaged hull plating. It should have killed everyone in the forward sections. It reached 30 meters from the ship. Then it stopped. The bolt hung in space, trapped inside an invisible curve. It glowed, twisted, cooled, and faded like a coal dropped into black water. On Arkin's display, the enemy formation shook with sudden activity. Their alarms were screaming. Callum opened a broadcast to every receiver in range. Not just the Vorith fleet. The station. The traders. The civilian ships. The monitoring buoys. The observer channels Yaina had quietly activated. His voice went out clear and calm. Vorith Fleet Command, this is Callum Voss. You fired on a legally purchased salvage vessel during an active ownership review. Your shot failed to reach my hull. I suggest we discuss the treaty you are about to need. He did not threaten them. He did something worse. He shared information. Arkin had been studying the Vorith ships since they arrived. In less than a minute, it had mapped hull stresses, reactor cycles, heat bleed, weapon charge patterns, shield timing, command relay positions, engine vulnerability, and likely internal compartment structure. Callum broadcast the analysis openly. Then he added the targeting solution. A clean, careful sequence showing how the first throne could destroy all 4 Vorith vessels in 3 minutes and 52 seconds. The Sovereign-class Dreadnought would take the longest. The Vorith fleet went silent. Callum did not smile. He did not want to kill them. That was the important thing. Arkin could do it. The ship could erase them. The ancient power under his hands was real, alive, and terrible. But Callum had spent his life around broken ships and desperate people. He knew what destruction cost. He knew every vessel held bodies, voices, habits, old jokes, unfinished letters, and people who thought they had more time. So he waited. Then another ship arrived. It dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the engagement zone. Small. White. Unarmed. Carrying the triple ring mark of the compact neutral observer corps. Yaina had called them 3 days earlier. She had not trusted justice. She had trusted witnesses. The observer ship began recording immediately. It logged the Vorith formation. It logged the fired plasma shot. It logged the lack of return fire. It logged the legal salvage claim. It logged the ancient vessel's defensive field. It logged the archive transmission Yaina sent at the same moment. 200 pages of translated proof went to the compact historical archive. Proof that humanity had crossed stars 40,000 years ago. Proof that the ship was human. Proof that the Vorith claim to oldest regional civilization was false. Proof that the legal structure holding humanity beneath them might be built on a lie. The political shape of the entire region changed in 1 hour. The Vorith fleet withdrew. No apology. No answer. No second shot. The 4 warships turned away from Durith 9 and vanished into jump light. Only after they disappeared did the command chamber breathe again. Sable came in with 2 cups of terrible coffee. She handed one to Callum. "So," she said, "we just became enemies of the most powerful military force in the region." Callum took the cup. "We already were. Now they know we know." Sable looked at the star map. The 11 points glowed faintly. "They will come back." "Yes." "With more ships." "Yes." "Please tell me you have a plan." Callum looked at the nearest point of ancient light. "We leave before they arrive." Yaina entered behind them, holding her pad like it was sacred. "The first coordinate is 6 days away if we run quiet." Sable stared at them both. "You want to find another one?" Callum stood. "No. I want to find all of them." The first throne turned from Durith 9. Its engines came alive slowly, like an old giant stretching after a long sleep. Behind it, the station watched. Inside it, humans held their breath. And across the local networks, the story began to move. Stay with the journey now, because 1 ship has awakened and 10 more are waiting in the dark. If this story has earned your time, like the video, subscribe for the next chapter, and share it with someone who understands why humans never stay small forever. The story did not move like an official announcement. Official announcements were careful. They were filtered, polished, delayed, denied, reviewed, and weakened until no one could feel the truth inside them. This story moved like fire through dry grass. A human bought a junk ship. The ship was ancient. The ship was human. The Vorith fired on it. The shot stopped in the air. The human did not fire back. The Vorith left. On Durith 9, dock workers replayed the recording in maintenance tunnels and food stalls. On mining stations, human crews watched it during shift breaks with dirty hands and tired eyes. On cargo haulers, pilots sent it through private channels with short messages like, "Watch this, and tell everyone, and this is real." At first, many did not believe it. Humans had learned to distrust good news. That was when the excavation crew changed forever. Arkin scanned the humans who had come to help. 47 carried partial command markers. 9 carried strong interface markers. 1 carried a near-perfect engineering bond marker. Sable. She denied it for 12 full minutes. "No," she said. The second ship's command chamber brightened when she entered. "No." The chair reshaped. "No." Sable looked at Callum in betrayal. "You did this. I did not arrange your bloodline. You are enjoying this." "A little." She sat in the command chair like someone accepting an insult from history itself. Marrow connected. Sable went completely still. The lights in the chamber deepened. After a long silence, she whispered, "Oh." Callum waited. She looked around the room with wide eyes. "It thinks in structures." "That sounds like you." "It is beautiful." Callum did not tease her after that. Some moments were too sacred, even for friends. The second Dreadnought joined the first 7 days later. The sight of them together changed everyone who saw it. Two ancient human warships moved through space side by side, not as museum pieces, not as captured relics, but as living vessels under human command. Their hull lights matched and answered each other across the void. Arkin and Marrow shared memory fragments, repair patterns, and old fleet recognition codes that had not crossed space in 40,000 years. When the signals touched, both ships sang. Not loudly. Not with words. A deep harmonic passed through their hulls and into every human ship nearby. Some people cried without understanding why. Yaina said it was a fleet recognition tone. Callum thought it sounded like grief finding another survivor. They found the third ship because it found them. 3 weeks after leaving the Veth corridor, the first throne detected a pulse hidden inside the magnetic noise of a gas giant. It was weak, old, and patient. A breadcrumb. The ancient engineers had expected this. They knew one awakened ship might pass near another. They had left signals only human dreadnought systems could hear. The third ship waited inside the gas giant's outer magnetosphere, surrounded by a thin ring of debris that had collected around it over thousands of years. It was almost undamaged. When Callum approached, its lights came on before anyone touched it. The AI introduced itself as Vale. It did not ask whether humans had returned. It said, "You took long enough." Yaina laughed so hard she had to sit down. Vale's bonded candidate was a quiet cargo pilot named Ren. He refused at first. Not out of fear. Out of humility. "I move freight," he said. "I am not a commander." Callum looked at the 3 ancient ships visible through the viewport. "I bought scrap." Sable lifted a hand from her console. "I complained professionally." Yaina smiled. "I was unemployed." Ren looked at the command chamber. Vale spoke again, and Yaina translated. "War does not ask whether the worthy feel ready." Ren sat. The third dreadnought woke fully within hours. Now there were 3. 3 ancient human dreadnoughts moving through space in triangular formation, gold-white lights burning across dark hulls, surrounded by a growing convoy of human ships and allied observers. The galaxy could no longer pretend this was a salvage dispute. It was a return. The journey is getting bigger than one man now. If you want more stories where ordinary humans step into impossible history, press like, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who needs a reminder that forgotten does not mean gone. 6 months after Callum raised his bid paddle on Durith 9, he stood before a viewport and watched 3 dreadnoughts travel together. He looked older. Everyone did. Sable had dark circles under her eyes and the strange calm of someone who had stopped fighting destiny because destiny had useful engineering standards. Yaina had become the most famous forbidden scholar in compact space. Half the academic world now wanted to praise her, and the other half wanted to pretend they had never mocked her. Ren still acted like a cargo pilot, even while bonded to a warship that could crack a cruiser formation open like thin glass. The convoy had grown to 40 ships. Some were human volunteer vessels. Some were independent traders. Some were research craft. 2 were compact observer ships. 1 was a Thressi academic vessel whose entire crew had resigned from their official posts to join the search. They were not soldiers. That mattered. They were witnesses, workers, translators, cooks, medics, repair crews, and people who believed the truth needed bodies around it. Callum had spent the last months doing things he was not trained to do. He had testified before compact legal panels through long-range communication. He had answered questions from human coalition leaders. He had reviewed security plans, ship repairs, ancient tactical records, food shortages, fuel needs, and political threats. He had survived 3 Vorith intercept attempts. None had become battle, because every time the 3 dreadnoughts lit their hull systems, the intercept ships discovered urgent reasons to reconsider. The Vorith were not cowards. That made their caution more powerful. They knew what the ships were now. Or at least, they knew enough to fear what they did not know. One evening, if deep space could have evenings, Callum sat in the first throne while Arkin showed him the remaining map. 8 points of light. 8 ships still sleeping. Each one hidden in a different forgotten place. A comet shell beyond mapped lanes. A hollow asteroid in a dead system. A ruined field near a star no one visited. A frozen ocean world under thick ice. Places chosen with heartbreaking care by engineers who had known they would never come back. Yaina entered quietly. She carried a translation pad. I found more personal logs, she said. Callum looked up. From the last campaign? She nodded. He did not want to hear them. He needed to. Arkin dimmed the command chamber. A reconstructed voice filled the air. It belonged to an ancient human commander. A woman. Her title translated poorly, but Yaina said the closest meaning was Fleet Mother. Her voice was low and tired. Not theatrical. Not heroic in the way stories pretend heroes sound. She sounded like someone who had already given everything and was leaving one final message because love demanded it. Yaina translated softly. We do not know who will hear this. We do not know what shape our children's children will take after the long silence. We hope enough remains. We hope the blood remembers what history cannot carry. Callum closed his eyes. The voice continued. We built these ships to end a war. We leave them because the war may not end. The enemy we face does not think as we do. It can study weapons. It can copy tactics. It can wait longer than nations. But it never understood why we would choose loss to protect people not yet born. Sable stood in the doorway now. Ren behind her. No one interrupted. Yaina's voice thickened, but she kept translating. If you are hearing this, then we succeeded in disappearing. That means you may hate us for what we took from you. You may wonder what humanity could have become if we had not burned our own path behind us. You have the right to wonder. You have the right to grieve. But know this. We did not make you small because we thought you were weak. We made you hidden because you were precious. Callum's hand tightened on the armrest. The ancient commander paused. Then the final words came. Guard the thing the enemy cannot learn. Guard the part of us that gives without reward. If the dark returns, meet it together. The recording ended. No one moved. For a long time, the first throne carried only the low sound of its own living systems. Then Sable wiped her face angrily. I hate ancient people, she said. Ren gave a broken laugh. Yaina lowered her pad. Callum looked at the map. 8 lights. 8 responsibilities. They thought of everything, he said. Yaina nodded. Almost. What did they miss? She looked at him. How lonely it would be to inherit them. Callum stood slowly. Outside the viewport, Marrow and Vale moved in formation with Arkin. Not lonely anymore. Then we do not inherit them alone, he said. The compact emergency sessions became public 2 days later. 7 member species requested a full review of the Founding Precedence Accord, the legal structure the Vorith had used for centuries to claim special authority over younger species. The hegemony objected. Loudly. That only made more species curious. The Thressi delegation asked why verified human archive evidence had been excluded from official history. The Nemur Union requested an investigation into cultural suppression. A coalition of human settlements filed a formal petition to remove the developing species restrictions that limited human military ownership, colony defense rights, and independent long-range exploration. For the first time in living memory, humanity was not asking for kindness. It was presenting evidence. Yaina's translations became the center of the legal storm. The archive did not flatter humanity. It did not claim ancient humans were perfect. It recorded failures, disputes, mistakes, losses, and fears. That made it harder to dismiss. Propaganda tries to look clean. Real history has scars. The Vorith tried to call the ships dangerous artifacts. Callum agreed. Then he asked why dangerous human artifacts should belong to the Vorith. They tried to call the archive unstable. Yaina released cross-verified linguistic structures and invited neutral scholars to review them. They tried to call Callum an illegal combatant. The Compact Observer Corps released the full Durith 9 recording again. A Vorith cruiser had fired first. The human Dreadnought had not returned fire. That fact became a blade no one could take from him. Still, Callum knew politics would not save them. Politics moved slowly. Fear moved fast. So did war. Arkin, Marrow, and Vale continued running long-range scans. At first, Callum thought they were searching only for the remaining ships. Then Arkin showed him a deeper pattern. Old listening posts. Dead warning buoys. Silent sensor nets built by ancient humans and hidden between stars. Most were gone. Some were damaged. A few had begun to wake as the dreadnoughts passed near enough to touch their ancient codes. One sent a fragment of data that made Arkin go quiet for 12 minutes. Callum felt the silence through the bond. What is it? Arkin answered with images. A dark region beyond mapped space. Gravitational noise. A pattern that repeated too cleanly to be natural. Yaina translated the old warning tag. Possible recurrence. Sable stared at the display. The unraveling. No one wanted to say yes. Arkin did not say yes. It showed probability. 17%. Then 23. Then 31 as more old data aligned. Callum looked at the sleeping ship markers. How long? Arkin could not answer. That was worse. The ancient enemy might still be far away. It might still be sleeping. It might be a ghost pattern, a wound in old data, a false echo from dead sensors. Or it might be returning. The ancient humans had bought time, not victory. Now time was asking to be paid for. Sable leaned over the display. We need the other 8 ships. Yes, Callum said. We need crews. Yes. We need training, supplies, dockyards, legal recognition, fuel, weapons control, translation support, and probably a miracle. Callum looked at her. You forgot better coffee. For that, she said, we need divine intervention. He smiled, but it faded quickly. The next coordinate waited beyond contested space. Vorith patrol territory. They could avoid it, but that would add months. Months they might not have. Ren joined them through the command link from Vale. We go through, he said. Yaina looked at him. That may start a war. Ren's face was calm. No. If they attack, they start it. If we turn away from our own ships because we are afraid of their permission, then we prove we still believe they own our future. Callum studied the map. The cargo pilot was right. That was happening more often now. The ordinary people who had gathered around the dreadnoughts kept saying things that sounded like the foundation of nations. Callum opened the convoy channel. All ships, this is Callum Voss. Our next course crosses restricted Vorith patrol lanes. No one is ordered to follow. No one will be judged for turning back. These ships are old, powerful, and dangerous. So is the truth around them. Anyone who stays should understand that the galaxy may not let us pass quietly. He waited. One by one, ship signals answered. Ren's cargo friends. The medics. The mechanics. The Thressi scholars. The observers. The independent traders. The human crews from mining colonies, freight stations, and forgotten outposts. No one turned away. Sable looked at the signal list. Well, she said quietly, apparently we are all idiots. Yaina smiled. No. We are witnesses. Callum felt Arkin's presence around him. The first throne turned toward the contested lanes. 3 dreadnoughts and 40 smaller ships followed. Ahead of them waited politics, patrols, sleeping giants, and maybe an ancient darkness beginning to stir. Behind them, humanity was waking. And for the first time in 40,000 years, it was not waking alone. The next part of the story belongs to everyone who stayed when leaving was safer. Like this video if you are still with the fleet, subscribe so you do not miss the next journey, and share it with someone who believes courage often starts with ordinary people refusing to step back. They entered Vorith patrol space 3 days later. The stars looked the same. That bothered Callum. He had expected the border to feel different. He had expected some visible line between fear and choice. Instead, space remained dark, wide, and silent, as if borders were only stories drawn by people who wanted others to obey them. Arkin tracked 6 patrol ships within the first hour. None approached. By the second hour, there were 9. By the fourth, 12. Sable watched the tactical display from Marrow's command chamber, linked to Callum through the fleet channel. They are shadowing us. I know. They are trying to decide if they can take us. They cannot. That has never stopped politicians from asking soldiers to try. Yaina was aboard the First Throne, working with a legal team over encrypted comms. The Human Coalition had filed advance notice of cultural recovery transit. It was a bold legal move, and maybe a foolish one, but it forced the compact to watch. The Vorith could not claim surprise. They could only claim authority. That claim was weakening by the day. The patrol ship stayed distant until the convoy reached the old patrol gate near Halvern Drift. There, a Vorith blockade waited. 20 ships. Not enough to defeat 3 ancient dreadnoughts, according to Arkin. More than enough to turn a political crisis into a massacre. The blockade commander sent a transmission. Human convoy, you are entering restricted security space. Reverse course immediately. Callum opened the channel. This is a cultural recovery mission under active compact review. We are moving to a registered heritage coordinate. There is no recognized human heritage coordinate in this sector. There is now. The Vorith commander's voice hardened. You do not have authorization. Callum looked at Yaina. She nodded. He sent the archive proof packet tied to the coordinate. Old human map data. Ancient fleet records. The sleeping ship's likely location. Compact filing numbers. Observer verification. The blockade did not move. For 12 minutes, no one spoke. Then a new voice entered the channel. Admiral Thresh Vakon. Callum recognized the command signature from Durith 9. Callum Voss, the Admiral said. Admiral. You are testing the limits of restraint. No, Callum said. I am testing whether your government understands evidence. You are moving warships through our security lane. I am moving human ships to recover a human vessel. That vessel has not been proven to exist. Then you have nothing to worry about. Sable muttered through the private link, that was almost elegant. Vakon ignored it. Turn back. Callum looked at the blockade. The First Throne systems waited beneath his hands. He could feel Arkin's calculations. Not pressure. Not hunger. Options. Angles. Risks. The ship could break the blockade. It could disable engines. It could blind sensors. It could open a gravity shear and push half the formation apart without killing anyone, probably. Probably was not good enough. Callum opened the channel wider, broadcasting to every ship, every observer, every hidden listener in range. Admiral Vakon, I will not fire first. I will not turn back. Humanity has the legal right to recover its own history. If you attack us, the compact will see it. Your own officers will see it. Every human in this region will see it. Decide what future you want them to remember. Silence. The blockade held. Then one small thing happened. A Vorith cruiser moved. Not away. Aside. A gap opened in the formation. Then another ship shifted. Then another. Admiral Vakon said nothing. The convoy passed through. No one cheered. The moment was too fragile for that. But on 40 ships, people breathed again. The fourth dreadnought was hidden inside the shattered core of a dead mining world. The planet had been cracked open by old industrial extraction centuries earlier, long after the ancient ship had been buried there. Its hiding place had survived by luck or by planning so precise it looked like luck. The ship was badly damaged. Its outer armor had been crushed in places. Its power systems were unstable. Its AI was silent at first. For 2 weeks, crews worked inside tunnels where stone dust floated in low gravity and every sound echoed like a warning. Sable coordinated repairs between Marrow and the new ship. Ren used Vale's intact systems to stabilize the dead planet's debris field. Arkin kept watch. Callum spent hours inside the damaged command chamber. The chair there was cracked. The walls were dark. "Can it wake?" he asked. Arkin answered slowly. "Possible." Yaina found the ship's name carved beside the command arch. Lumen. Light. Its bonded candidate was not obvious. The scans found several partial matches, but no strong one among the convoy. Then a message arrived from one of the mining crews. A young woman named Imani Valles had touched a damaged relay and the ship had answered by lighting half a corridor. Imani was 24. She had worked or loaders since she was 15. She had never left her home system until 3 weeks earlier, when her entire crew voted to join the convoy because, in her words, someone has to know how rocks behave. When Callum met her, she looked angry to be nervous. "I do not command things," she said. "Neither did I. That does not help. It is not supposed to. It is just true." She entered Lumen's command chamber. The cracked chair lit beneath her hand. The ship did not speak aloud. It flickered. Weak light moved across dead walls. Imani closed her eyes. After a moment, she said, "It is scared." Sable's voice softened over comms. "Ships do not get scared." Callum looked at Arkin's silent displays. "Yes," he said. "They do." Imani sat in the broken chair. Lumen woke like a wounded animal. Slowly. Carefully. Trusting pain. The convoy stayed until it could move. By then, the galaxy had changed again. The Council of Species announced a temporary suspension of several developing species restrictions on humanity until the historical review concluded. It was not freedom. Not fully. But it was a crack in the wall. Human colonies began forming defense councils. Human shipyards offered repair capacity. Human schools requested Yaina's translations. Songs appeared on private networks. Bad songs, mostly. Loud songs. Funny songs. Songs about Callum's old jacket, Sable's coffee, Ren's cargo shuttle, and the ship that called miners home. Callum hated the songs. Sable loved that he hated them. But under the humor was something serious. People were no longer waiting to be invited into their own future. The fifth ship nearly cost them everything. It waited under ice on a frozen ocean world beyond compact charts. The planet had storms that could tear landing craft apart. The ship rested beneath 8 kilometers of ice and black water. Arkin and Vale cut a path down with controlled heat lances while Marrow stabilized the ice shelf. For 30 hours, everything worked. Then the storm shifted. A crack opened across the ice plain. 3 work crews were trapped between collapsing ridges. Callum ordered evacuation, but one drilling rig was pinned. Sable was on the surface. Of course she was. Her signal broke in and out through the storm. "Rig 2 is locked. I can free it, but I need 7 minutes. "You have 3, Callum said. "Then I need you to make time less disappointing." The ice shelf broke. Callum felt Arkin's power rise. The first throne could fire a gravity line into the surface and hold the shelf, but the math was dangerous. Too much force would crush the crews. Too little would do nothing. Arkin showed him the risks. Callum saw the faces of the people below. He chose. The Dreadnought reached down with invisible force and held a piece of a dying glacier together. For 5 minutes, the ship strained. Sable freed the rig with 40 seconds left. Everyone lifted off as the ice collapsed into the black ocean. Back aboard, Sable stormed into the command chamber soaked, freezing, and furious. "That was stupid," she said. Callum nodded. "Yes. You could have cracked the planet's crust." "Yes. You did it anyway." "Yes." She stared at him for a long moment. Then she hugged him. Only once. Very quickly. Then she stepped back and pointed at him. "Tell anyone and I will vent your socks into space." The fifth ship woke beneath the ocean. Its name was Harrow. Its AI had spent 40,000 years listening to ice move overhead. It spoke slowly, like deep water learning language again. Its bonded commander was an old medic named Tomas Elian, who had come with the first supply crew from Dureth 9. He had no military experience. He had patched miners, treated radiation burns, delivered babies on stations with failing gravity, and comforted dying strangers because someone had to. Harrow accepted him immediately. Yaina translated the reason from the ship's first bond statement. Preservation instinct dominant. Command suitability confirmed. Tomas laughed quietly. So the warship picked a doctor. Callum smiled. Maybe the ancient humans understood war better than we do. 5 ships now traveled together. Arkin. Marrow. Vale. Lumen. Harrow. 5 points awake. 6 still sleeping. The Vorith stopped trying small intercepts after that. Instead, they began moving fleets. Not toward the convoy directly. Toward human systems. Pressure. A reminder. A warning. The old method of empire. Obey, or others will suffer. Callum watched the reports with a cold feeling in his stomach. Human colony leaders contacted him daily now. Some wanted guidance. Some wanted weapons. Some wanted reassurance he did not know how to give. He was not a president. Not an admiral. Not a prophet. He was a salvager who had bought the right piece of junk. One night, he sat alone in the first throne and spoke to Arkin. "They are turning me into something." Arkin hummed. "I do not know how to be that." The ship answered through the interface with an old memory. A commander standing before thousands of people. Afraid. Not fearless. Not certain. Afraid, but standing anyway. Then Arkin sent a phrase. Yaina was not there to translate, but somehow Callum understood the shape of it. Command is not certainty. Command is care under pressure. Callum leaned back and closed his eyes. That is a cruel standard. Arkin's hum softened. He slept in the throne that night. For the first time, he dreamed in ancient stars. The fleet is no longer only waking ships, it is waking a people. If this moment speaks to you, give the video a like, subscribe for more human-first stories, and share it with someone who knows leadership is not about power, it is about carrying the weight anyway. The sixth ship waited in a place no one wanted to go. The old records called it the Ash Ring. Modern maps called it a radiation hazard and marked it with warning symbols. A star had died there long ago, leaving behind a field of burned worlds, broken stations, and dust that still carried violent energy. Ships avoided it because instruments behaved badly inside the ring. Of course, that made it a perfect hiding place. The ancient coordinate pointed to a hollow fragment of a shattered moon. The Dreadnought inside was intact, but its systems were locked behind a security protocol unlike the others. It did not trust them. Arkin tried old recognition codes. Marrow sent fleet bond signals. Vale transmitted command lineage. Harrow sent preservation identity. Lumen sent recovery status. The sixth ship remained dark. Yaina studied the access scripts and grew more concerned. This ship was not hidden in sleep, she said. It was hidden in quarantine. Sable stopped working. That is a word I dislike near ancient war machines. Yaina translated more. The name is Bastion. It was assigned to guard something. Guard what? Callum asked. The answer came when they opened the inner vault. It was not a weapon. It was a prison. Deep inside Bastion, behind layers of dead power and ancient seals, they found a captured fragment of the unraveling. Not alive in the way humans understood life. Not dead either. It existed inside a containment lattice, a knot of darkness and silver thread suspended in a field that made every scanner scream contradictions. Every AI in the awakened fleet went quiet. Callum felt arcane recoil. That was the only word for it. A 40,000-year-old dreadnought, built for war against an impossible enemy, recoiled. Sable whispered, "We should leave." No one argued. Then the fragment moved. Not physically. It shifted in attention. Every screen in the chamber flickered. A voice came through static. Not ancient human. Not any language Yaina knew. But everyone understood the meaning. Recognized. Callum's blood went cold. The containment field held. Barely. Bastion woke then. Its AI came online with one command priority. Do not let it learn. Yaina translated the warning records. The ancient humans had captured a tiny piece of the enemy during the final war. Not to study its weapons. Not to copy its power. To understand its limits. Bastion had been assigned to hold it forever, or until the heirs returned. The records were clear. The fragment could not be destroyed with any known method without risking signal release. It could not be allowed access to active networks. It could not be moved without fleet-level containment. It could not be spoken to. Ren stared through the vault shield. If this is only a fragment, what is the whole thing like? No one answered. They all knew the answer was too large. Bastion did not bond easily. Its command candidate was a compact observer officer named Lyra Sen, a human who had kept strict neutrality through every crisis and filed every report with painful honesty. She refused at first for legal reasons. Then Bastion showed her the prison logs. 40,000 years of watch duty. 40,000 years alone with the thing that had helped end its civilization. Lyra placed her hand on the command seal. I will witness, she said. Bastion accepted. The fleet left the ash ring with 6 dreadnoughts and a terrible new certainty. The unraveling was not myth. Not metaphor. Not only history. Something of it still existed. And when it had seen Callum, it had recognized him. After Bastion, the mood changed. The convoy still worked. People still joked. Sable still complained about coffee. Ren still talked to cargo pilots like he was not the commander of an ancient warship. Yaina still filled every surface with notes. But a shadow traveled with them now. The enemy was no longer an old word in the archive. It was real. The 7th ship became urgent. The coordinate pointed to a region beyond the old frontier, near a cluster of young colonies where humans had recently settled under difficult conditions. If the unraveling, or anything linked to it, was stirring in that direction, those colonies would be exposed. The fleet increased speed. Vorath forces followed at a distance. Not attacking. Watching. The hegemony had its own fear now. That changed the conversations. Admiral Vacon requested a direct channel on the 2nd day of transit. Callum almost refused. Yaina advised against refusal. Sable advised several creative insults. Callum opened the channel. Vacon appeared as a tall amber-scaled figure in formal military black. He looked tired. That surprised Callum. You found something in the ash ring, Vacon said. Callum kept his face still. What makes you say that? Because 6 ancient warships changed course at emergency speed, and every deep sensor near the ash ring failed for 11 minutes. Callum said nothing. Vacon leaned closer. There are records in Vorith sealed archives. Very old. Older than our public history. They speak of a silence before our expansion. A fear that came from beyond the Perseid dark. We considered them superstition. Yaina, listening beside Callum, went still. Vacon continued. Is it returning? Callum studied him. For 600 years, the Vorith had held humanity down with arrogance dressed as law. They had mocked human history. They had tried to seize the first throne. They had fired first. But fear had stripped something from the Admiral's voice. Not pride. Not guilt. Need. I do not know, Callum said honestly. But I think something is moving. Vacon looked away. When he spoke again, his voice was lower. If that is true, then this conflict between us is a luxury. Sable muttered, I hate when enemies say reasonable things. Callum ignored her. What are you offering? Information, Vacon said. There are old forbidden zones in hegemony space. Places our earliest navigators marked and avoided without explanation. I will send coordinates. In exchange for what? Proof, Vacon said. Not for the Council. For me. Callum understood. The Admiral needed to know whether to prepare for politics or survival. Callum sent him one file. Only one. A fragment of Bastion's warning log, stripped of dangerous technical data. Vacon read it. His face changed. Not much. Enough. I will send the coordinates, he said. The channel closed. Sable crossed her arms. I still do not like him. Neither do I, Callum said. Yaina looked at the blank display. But he believes us. The seventh ship was not hidden. It was waiting in open space behind a veil of sensor distortion, near a cluster of human colonies that had never known what slept beside them. Its name was Dawn. It woke before the fleet arrived. Its first transmission went not to Callum, but to the nearby colonies. Every human communication device in range received the same ancient phrase, translated by Arkin into modern speech. Children of the long night, stand ready. Panic followed. Then awe. Then thousands of human colony ships lifted from moons, stations, and orbital habitats, not to flee, but to see. Callum watched their signals fill the display. So many small ships. Mining boats. Farm transports. Family haulers. Station shuttles. Old patrol craft with barely working guns. They gathered around the ancient fleet like sparks around a flame. Dawn's bonded commander was a school teacher named Alia Moore, who lived on the nearest colony moon and had spent 20 years teaching human children that they mattered in a galaxy that often told them they did not. When she entered the command chamber, Dawn's AI said one sentence. Yaina translated with a smile. You kept the children facing the stars. Alia sat in the command chair and wept. 7 ships. 4 left. But the unraveling signal grew clearer. Not close. Not yet. But no longer doubtful. The old sensor net was waking in pieces, and every recovered fragment pointed toward the same region beyond mapped space. A darkness was moving with patience. The ancient enemy had noticed the heirs. The 8th ship had to be found quickly. The coordinate came from Admiral Vacon's Forbidden Zone list. That alone made the mission strange. A Vorith admiral was now helping humans recover ancient human dreadnoughts because an older fear had begun to outweigh imperial pride. The ship lay inside hegemony territory, under the ruins of a pre-Vorith listening station that official history claimed had never existed. The political risk was enormous. The strategic need was worse. The fleet entered with Vacon's silent protection. Patrol routes shifted. Sensor records blurred. A door opened where none should have opened. Callum did not thank him publicly. Vacon did not ask him to. The 8th ship was named Oath. Its AI carried the strongest memory of the final war. When it woke, every other dreadnought lowered power for 1 full minute in recognition. Oath had been a fleet breaker. A ship built to stand at the center of impossible fights and hold the line while others escaped. Its commander bond went to a former human security contractor named Jamar, who had lost one arm protecting alien civilians during a station riot and had been paid with a medical debt, and unemployment. Oath accepted him before he finished stepping into the room. Jay looked at Callum. "I am not sure I deserve this." Callum thought of all the people history had chosen without asking. Maybe deserving is not the point. Jay placed his remaining hand on the command seal. Oath woke. 8 ships. The galaxy watched now. No one could hide the fleet anymore. Human children drew the dreadnoughts in classrooms. Vorith news channels warned about ancient human militarization. Thressi scholars published essays on historical justice. Nemur comedians made entire careers imitating Sable's engineering rants. Compact legal experts argued day and night. And beyond all of it, the dark signal grew. Arkin called a fleet council. Not in words. In need. For the first time, all 8 bonded commanders sat in their command thrones and linked through the ancient network. Callum. Sable. Ren. Imani. Tomas. Lyra. Alia. Jay. None of them had been raised for this. That became their strength. They did not think like Empire officers. They did not see ships as symbols first. They saw people. Crews. Colonies. Children. Stations. Homes. They understood what losing meant because most of them had spent their lives losing small things to powerful systems. Arkin showed them the probable path of the unraveling. If the pattern held, it would touch the outer colonies first. Human colonies. Then Thressi mining worlds. Then Vorith border stations. Then the compact core lanes. It would not care about politics. It would not care who had been old, proud, legal, dominant, or correct. It would learn them all. Unless stopped before it could study the modern galaxy fully. Bastion showed the one warning that mattered most. Do not reveal every weapon. Do not fight the way it expects. Do not let it learn the whole shape of you. Callum understood then why the ancient humans had left multiple ships, multiple commanders, multiple hidden records, and no single perfect plan. A perfect plan could be learned. A living people could surprise. The 9th coordinate waited in the dark ahead. The fleet set course. 8 dreadnoughts moved as one. Behind them came hundreds of human ships now, and allied vessels, and observers, and even a quiet Vorith support group flying without official markings. The galaxy was changing. The war had not even begun. But humanity had already won back one thing. Its own name. The shadows are moving now, and the fleet has almost become whole. Like the video if this story has carried you this far, subscribe for more long HFY adventures, and share it with someone who loves seeing humanity answer history with courage. The 9th ship was hidden inside a comet that had been traveling between stars for longer than most civilizations had existed. It had no system. No sun. No map position that stayed useful. The ancient humans had placed a dreadnought inside a moving mountain of ice and trusted their future selves to find it. Arkin found it by listening to old gravity rhythms. The comet was beautiful from a distance. A pale ghost moving through black space, leaving almost no tail because there was no nearby star to warm it. Inside that frozen body slept a ship named Mercy. Sable did not like the name. Ancient humans named a dreadnought Mercy. Yaina read the translation twice. Yes. That is either comforting or terrifying. Tomas, bonded to Harrow, spoke through the fleet link. Maybe Mercy is terrifying to the right enemy. The recovery was delicate. Mercy had been built into the comet's core, with ice layered over it in patterns that shielded its systems from detection. Cutting too fast could damage the hull. Heating too much could break the comet apart. For 9 days, crews carved paths through ancient ice. While they worked, the dark signal pulsed again. Closer. This time, even modern sensors caught a piece of it. Not an image. Not a ship. A distortion. A place where background stars bent wrong for a moment. Then corrected. Every AI in the fleet went alert. Bastion locked its prison vault. Arkin sent Callum a feeling through the bond that had no direct word. Old fear. Old duty. The enemy was not at the door. But it had entered the road. Mercy woke on the 10th day. Its command chamber was unlike the others. Softer in shape. Less severe. Its archive contained rescue protocols, evacuation architecture, medical preservation systems, and population shelter designs. Mercy had not been built to destroy. It had been built to save people while other ships destroyed. Its bonded commander was a young logistics officer named Mara Chen, who had organized food, medicine, and sleeping quarters for the growing convoy so efficiently that no one had noticed the miracle of it. Mercy noticed. When she sat in the command chair, the AI opened thousands of preservation plans and asked her where the refugees would go. Mara stared at the displays. What refugees? No one answered. They all knew. If the unraveling came, entire worlds might need to move. The fleet now had 9 ships. That should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like a clock getting louder. The 10th coordinate was gone. When they reached the system, they found empty space, a burned asteroid field, and fragments of ancient hull. For the first time since Durath 9, Callum felt the full weight of loss. Not delayed hope. Not sleep. Loss. The 10th Dreadnought had been destroyed long ago. Its name had been Crown. The debris still carried traces of battle damage older than recorded civilization. Arkin moved through the wreckage in silence. Marrow and Vale gathered memory fragments. Yaina translated broken hull inscriptions. Sable supervised recovery drones and said nothing sharp for an entire day. That was how everyone knew it hurt. They found Crown's final log inside a sealed core no larger than a human hand. The AI was gone, but the last commander's message remained. Yaina translated in the First Throne's archive chamber while all bonded commanders listened. Crown had not died in the final campaign. It had died after. Its commander had stayed awake longer than ordered, guarding the hiding routes while the last human populations were scattered and memory erased. An unraveling hunter found the trail. Crown led it away. Alone. It fought for 13 days. Then it destroyed itself to hide the path. The last line was simple. They must have the chance to forget. Callum left the chamber after that. He walked the corridors of the First Throne until he reached the outer hull access and stood near the place where he had first entered on Durath 9. Back then, he had thought he was buying scrap. Now he stood inside a promise made from grief. Yaina found him there. She saved us, Callum said. Yes. We will not recover all 11. No. The truth hurt more because it was simple. Yaina stood beside him. Maybe inheritance is not about getting everything back, she said. Maybe it is about carrying what survived. Callum looked at the warm wall. Arkin hummed gently around them. What about the last 2 coordinates? One remains stable, Yaina said. The other is unclear. Callum nodded. Then we go. Before leaving, the fleet held a memorial. No speeches from politicians. No flags from governments. Just ships in silence around the shattered remains of Crown. One by one, the dreadnoughts lit their hull lines. Arkin. Marrow. Vale. Lumen. Harrow. Bastion. Dawn. Oath. Mercy. 9 living ships honoring the one that had burned so they could remain hidden. Then Callum opened a channel to every vessel in the convoy. Remember this name, he said. Crown. Thousands of voices repeated it. Across the fleet. Across the convoy. Across listening stations and hidden relays. Crown. The name entered human memory again. That mattered. The 11th ship was waiting near a black dwarf star at the edge of a dead system. It had no dramatic burial. No ice. No moon. No prison. No battlefield. It floated in perfect silence, powered down, untouched. The ship was smaller than the others. Older. Arkin identified it with reverence. Seed. Yaina translated the archive title and began crying before anyone asked why. Seed was not a dreadnought in the normal sense. It was the first. The prototype. The vessel from which the others had been designed. It carried the earliest command bond experiments, the first unraveling warnings, the first decision records, and the oldest complete copy of pre-fall human history. Callum boarded alone at first. The command chamber was simple compared to the others. No grand arcs. No vast throne. Just a seat, a ring of dark panels, and a wall covered with names. Thousands of names. Engineers. Pilots. Children. Scientists. Farmers. Soldiers. Teachers. Families. The people who had agreed to erase their own civilization's future so humanity could have won. Seed's AI woke when Callum touched the wall. Its voice was fragile. Old beyond old. Yaina translated from the first throne. It asked one question. Did they live? Callum could not speak for a moment. Then he opened a visual channel. He showed Seed the convoy. Human ships. Human faces. Children aboard colony shuttles. Engineers in repair bays. Teachers. Medics. Pilots. Miners. Families. He showed it Earth, as it existed now. Mars. Luna. The scattered human colonies. The stations where humans worked. The ugly cargo ships. The crowded schools. The new defense councils. The people singing bad songs about ancient dreadnoughts. He showed it humanity. Not glorious. Not perfect. Alive. Seed was silent for a long time. Then its lights came on. Soft gold. Like sunrise seen through memory. Its bonded commander was not Callum. Seed did not choose one. It chose the human fleet. Yaina struggled with the translation, because the concept was old and layered. It says its command bond is distributed. It was never meant for war command after recovery. It was meant to teach. To remember. To help rebuild what was safely forgotten. Sable's voice came through, quiet. So we found the library. Yaina wiped her face. We found the beginning. 10 ships now lived. One was gone. The fleet was not complete, but it was enough to become something. And then the dark arrived. Not with fire. Not with a fleet dropping from faster than light. It appeared first as silence. 3 outer listening posts went dead. Then a colony sensor net near the frontier sent a picture of stars bending inward, as if space itself was being pulled through an invisible wound. Then Bastion's prison fragment screamed. Every system in the fleet shook. On the first throne, Arkin forced the sound away from human ears, but Callum still felt the meaning through the bond. Found. The unraveling had not returned fully. Not yet. What approached was a probe, maybe. A scout. A finger of the greater thing. But even a fragment of that ancient enemy had once consumed worlds. The Fleet Council formed within minutes. 10 command minds linked. Callum felt fear from all of them. Sable, sharp and controlled. Ren, steady. Imani, fierce. Tomas, protective. Lyra, exact. Alia, sorrowful and brave. J, ready. Mara, already planning evacuations. Seed, old and gentle. Arkin, beside him like a mountain that remembered war. They could run. They could hide. They could wait for the compact, the Vorith, the diplomats, the admirals, the committees. But the first colonies in the path were human. Small worlds. Young settlements. People with farms under domes, children in low-gravity schools, repair shops, water plants, and streets named after places their grandparents missed. The ancient humans had sacrificed everything for descendants they would never meet. Now those descendants had to decide what kind of people they had become. Callum opened the fleet channel. All ships, prepare for intercept. Sable appeared on the display. We are not fully repaired. I know. Half our crews are civilians. I know. The enemy learns from what we use. I know. She stared at him. Then what are we using? Callum looked at the convoy. At the human ships. At the allied vessels. At the observers. At the Vorith support craft still pretending not to be there. Then he looked at Arkin's old tactical archive. We use what it cannot understand. The plan was not elegant. That was why it worked. The unraveling probe entered normal space near the outer colony line and found no neat battle formation waiting. Instead, it found chaos. Human cargo haulers broadcasting false distress calls in old mining dialects. Thressi research ships creating sensor ghosts shaped like broken fleets. Vorith support vessels leaking fake military codes without admitting who ordered them. Mercy coordinating civilian evacuation patterns that looked random but moved millions out of danger. Bastion shielding every active network behind dead channels and physical relays. Seed feeding old human cultural noise into the void. Songs. Jokes. Children's stories. Arguments about food. Love messages. Broken station announcements. Thousands of years of messy human life. The Dreadnoughts did not reveal their full weapons. They struck once, then changed. Gravity shear. Then silence. Kinetic debris. Then false retreat. Shield bloom. Then mining charges delivered by old cargo drones. The unraveling probe adapted fast. Too fast. But every time it began to learn the pattern, humans changed the pattern for reasons no pure tactical intelligence would choose. Ren risked Vale to save a civilian ship that had already been marked expendable by probability. Tomas moved Harrow into a worse firing position because a medical transport needed cover. Sable used Marrow to overload a broken shield section not because it was efficient, but because she knew the enemy would assume no commander would damage her own ship on purpose. Imani drove Lumen through a debris cloud blind, trusting miners who had spent their lives reading rock by instinct. Alia used Dawn's communication array to broadcast classroom lessons from the colony children, turning the enemy's signal analysis into emotional noise with no strategic value. Jay held Oath in the center and let the probe think it had found the strongest target. Callum waited. Arkin waited with him. Bastion's data showed the probe opening its learning core for one deep adaptation cycle. That was the moment. Not a weapon strike. A choice. Callum ordered every ship in the fleet, civilian and military, human and alien, ancient and modern, to cut active systems for 3 seconds. 3 seconds of total silence. No signals. No targeting. No engines. No data. No pattern. The unraveling probe reached for information and found nothing. In that empty beat, Crowns recovered final log transmitted from Seed through a deadline Bastion had kept isolated. They must have the chance to forget. The probe paused. Not because it understood. Because it did not. That was the opening. The 10 dreadnoughts fired together, each using a different system, a different timing, a different logic. Not one perfect weapon. 10 imperfect choices, layered with thousands of civilian decoys and old human noise. The probe tried to learn them all. It could not learn fast enough. Space folded around it. Light bent. The dark structure cracked open. For one terrible second, Callum felt something vast looking back through the wound. Not the probe. The hole. Ancient. Patient. Hungry. It knew them now. But humanity knew it too. Then the probe collapsed into a burst of silent white fire. The battlefield went still. No one cheered at first. Everyone waited for the second wave. It did not come. Not yet. Across the fleet, damaged ships checked in one by one. Some were hurt badly. None were lost. Mercy's evacuation network had saved the colonies. Oath had taken heavy damage but held. Marrow's shield systems were half burned. The First Throne's forward batteries were dark. Sable appeared on Callum's display with soot on her face. I would like to say, for the record, that was a stupid plan. Callum exhaled. It worked. That does not make it less stupid. Ren laughed through the fleet link. Tomas began reading survivor counts. Yaina, who had spent the battle aboard Seed, sent one short message. The old enemy can bleed. Callum leaned back in the throne. Arkin's presence surrounded him, tired but alive. Outside, 10 ancient human ships drifted among modern vessels, colony craft, alien observers, and rescue lights. The fleet had survived its first true test. But Callum had felt the thing beyond the probe. This was not over. The ancient war had not ended. It had found a new age. And this time, humanity would not disappear. This time, it would stand where everyone could see. The battle has ended, but the real war is only opening its eyes. If you want more stories like this, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who would stand with the fleet when the dark comes back. After the battle, the galaxy stopped arguing about whether the old records mattered. The question became simpler. What happens now? The Vorath hegemony could no longer pretend humanity was a minor species making dangerous claims. Their own ships had helped, quietly but clearly. Their own admiral had sent forbidden coordinates. Their own border stations had seen the unraveling probe break through space and watched human Dreadnought stop it. The compact called an emergency assembly. This time, Callum attended in person. Not because he wanted to. Because Yaina said history needed a human face that did not look polished by politics. The assembly station was larger than some cities. Its central chamber held delegations from dozens of species, stacked in rings around a speaking floor. Above them, displays showed the recovered ships, the battle data, the archive proof, and the faces of evacuated colony children. Callum walked onto the floor in his patched jacket. Someone had offered him formal clothes. He refused. The jacket had been with him when he bought the ship. It deserved to see this. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Vorath delegates watched from their high ring. Admiral Vacon stood behind them, expression unreadable. The compact speaker addressed him. Callum Voss, salvage operator, bonded commander of the vessel known as First Throne, representative by request of the Human Recovery Coalition. You may speak. Callum looked around. He had faced warships with less discomfort. I am not a diplomat, he said. The chamber quieted. I know ships. I know what is broken, what can be repaired, and what needs to be left alone because touching it wrong will kill everyone nearby. For most of my life, that was enough. He looked up at the archive images. Then I bought a ship no one wanted. I thought I was buying scrap. I found a message. Not just for me. Not just for humans. For everyone. The displays shifted to the unraveling data. There is something coming. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe not this year. But it is real. It has destroyed civilizations before. It learns strength and turns it against the strong. The ancient humans did not defeat it by being more powerful. They survived by giving up power for people who would come later. He paused. That is not a human lesson only. Some of the alien delegates shifted. Callum continued. The old political order was built on who came first, who was strongest, who had the oldest claim, who got to decide when others were ready. That order nearly kept these ships buried. It nearly handed them to people who wanted the truth locked away. If we keep thinking like that, the unraveling will not need to destroy us. We will prepare its victory ourselves. The Vorath delegation was very still. Callum looked toward them. Humanity is not asking to replace one empire with another. We are not asking for revenge for every insult, every limit, every closed door, every time our people were told to wait outside history. We remember those things. We will not pretend they did not happen. But revenge is too small for what is coming. Yaina stood in the observer ring, eyes bright. Sable watched from a side channel, probably hating every second of ceremony. Callum took a breath. We are asking for recognition. Full recognition. Not as a developing species. Not as a managed population. As heirs to our own history and partners in the defense of every world that wants to survive what is coming. The chamber held its silence. Then an unexpected voice spoke. Admiral Vacon. He stepped forward from the Vorath ring. My government will object to much of what has been said. A low sound moved through the chamber. Vacon continued. But I have reviewed the battle data. I have reviewed the archive fragments provided under seal. I have seen the enemy signature in our oldest forbidden records. The human commander is correct about one thing. He looked at Callum. This conflict between our peoples is now a luxury. The Vorath delegates looked furious. Vacon did not stop. I recommend immediate provisional recognition of the Human Recovery Coalition as an independent defense authority, pending final historical review. I recommend joint preparation against the external threat. I recommend that the hegemony begin treaty talks. For 600 years, the Vorath had ordered. Now one of their admirals had recommended. It was not apology. It was not justice. But it was movement. The vote took 9 hours. Humanity won provisional recognition by a narrow margin. The developing species restrictions were suspended. The recovered dreadnoughts were recognized as human cultural and defense vessels. Yaina's archive team received protected status. The Human Recovery Coalition became real. When Callum returned to the First Throne, the convoy had become a fleet in truth. Not just dreadnoughts. Shipyards had pledged support. Colonies had sent crews. Alien allies had offered specialists. Even some Vorath officers, acting through careful channels, sent old data and tactical models. Sable met him in the command chamber. Well, she said, you accidentally became historically important. I hate it. I know. It is one of your better qualities. Yaina arrived with a data slate. The Council approved the first joint archive release for human education networks. Callum smiled at that. Children would learn the truth. Not all at once. Not perfectly. But the lie had cracked. Ren's voice came through the fleet link. Outer patrols are ready. Tomas added, medical evacuation drills begin in 1 hour. Alia said, the colony schools are asking if Dawn can answer questions. Sable raised an eyebrow. An ancient dreadnought doing classroom visits. Callum looked at the starfield. Good. That night, he sat alone with Arkin. The First Throne's lights were calm. The ship had been dead in a junkyard less than a year ago. Now it was the heart of a fleet, a legal symbol, a war asset, a memory, and a promise. Callum placed his hands on the armrests. Did we do enough? Arkin answered with no words at first. Then it opened the old map. Not the map of sleeping ships. The larger one. Ancient human space. Lost worlds. Forgotten routes. Warning nets. Battle scars. Places where the unraveling had once moved. Places where it might move again. There was so much left. Too much. Callum almost laughed. Of course. Arkin's hum warmed. A message appeared in old script, then translated into simple modern words. Begin again. Callum sat with that. Begin again. Not restore everything. Not become the old empire. Not pretend the past could return clean and shining. Begin again. With memory. With warning. With allies. With better choices, if they were brave enough to make them. Outside, the human fleet turned toward the frontier. 10 dreadnoughts moved among hundreds of smaller ships. Repair crews worked. Children sent questions to Dawn. Doctors trained aboard Harrow. Refugee plans grew inside Mercy. Bastion watched its terrible prisoner. Seed taught history. Oath stood guard. Lumen, Vale, Marrow, and the First Throne burned gold against the dark. In stations across the galaxy, humans looked at the stars differently. Not with arrogance. Not with the empty pride of people trying to prove they were better. With recognition. They had been hidden, not worthless. Delayed, not defeated. Forgotten, not gone. And somewhere beyond the mapped edge, the unraveling waited. It had learned that humanity lived. But it had not learned humanity. Not really. It had not learned why a salvager would spend everything on a dead ship because it felt warm. It had not learned why an engineer would risk her life for a system she claimed to hate. It had not learned why a ruined scholar would keep chasing truth after the powerful buried her name. It had not learned why miners, teachers, medics, pilots, cargo crews, and children could become the shape of resistance. It had not learned why the ancient humans gave up the stars so their descendants could one day choose them again. That was the weapon. Not the dreadnoughts alone. Not the gold lights. Not the gravity fields or ancient batteries. The real weapon was the thing no enemy could copy from a scan. The human reason behind the human act. Callum stood from the throne and walked to the forward viewport. Sable joined him with 2 cups of coffee. Still terrible. Still essential. She handed him one. Where now? She asked. Callum looked at the frontier. Yaina entered behind them, carrying new translations. Ren and the others appeared as small windows across the fleet link. Different faces. Different ships. One impossible road. Callum raised the cup slightly toward the stars. Home, he said. Sable looked confused. Earth? No. He watched the fleet turn. Forward. Arkin accepted the command. The First Throne moved. Around it, the recovered dreadnoughts followed. Behind them came the living fleet of a people who had finally remembered enough to stop asking permission to exist. The junk ship no one wanted had become the first voice of a returning humanity. And in the dark ahead, whatever waited would learn the truth soon enough. Humanity had been silent for 40,000 years. Now it was answering.